You might be wondering, does this guy have any other clothes? The answer is no, because like Ron Swanson, I only spend about $40 a year on clothes. I wanted to do a follow-up video on push-ups related to females because they can help augment the upper body strength in the lifts like the press and the bench. Alright, now we're actually on the ground with a dog bed, and we're going to go over some cues for the push-up. The first is how the hands articulate with the ground. A lot of people will set up and their fingers will be rotated in, and this only helps the internally rotated position by flaring the elbows. So, in the last video, I talked about 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock position to help get in a good starting position for the push-up. But a lot of people will put the emphasis of the force application on the outside of their hands, so just tell them to have flat hands so that the heel of their palm is what's distributing the load instead of the outside, because the outside would just help them flare their elbows when they're doing it. So heel the palm and 11 and 1. Also, when some people set up, they'll have their chest dropped or they'll be just in a bad position in their thoracic spine, and that's going to change the positioning of where their shoulder is. So chest up, shoulder blades pinched, and now we're in a good plank position. Now those are passive cues that the person shouldn't have to think about during the actual movement. So now let's talk about active cues. The first active cue I like to use is elbows over wrists. This is also a cue I will use sometimes on the bench, and also I like to use it on the dip because it keeps the elbows from flaring out and keeps them centered over the wrist. So whereas if the person is still internally rotating, elbows over wrists might help them think vertical forearm in order to have a good externally rotated position. Of course, you can also cue something like elbows to ribs, which is kind of like the follow-up cue to elbows over wrists, because elbows to ribs makes them have a visual that they need to keep their elbow going towards their rib throughout the movement. And those are the cues that will help someone get into good externally rotated position. Now this may actually be more difficult for a female than their previous internally rotated position. That's fine, and that's what you would want, because they're training structures and musculature through an inefficient range of motion, and now that they're going to be doing it correctly, it's going to be inefficient to what they're adapted to. So we have to build up the strength and musculature through the proper range of motion. So even if they only can do singles or doubles, that's fine, and improve the daily volume in their training with each training day. But they can be used every training day, they can be alternated every other training day, they can even be used most days, just take it 1 or 2 days off a week. But train them through the full range of motion. The girl should be touching her chest or her boobs on the ground, because if she's only doing half a rep, that's not going to do her any favors on the press, the bench, the push press. And by doing push-ups correctly, especially if the girl is tall and has long limbs or has a weak upper body, it will probably augment those other lifts. And even if it doesn't, then they're going to help train the musculature in their anterior shoulder girdle and their triceps properly. And they're also the fuck was I talking about? They're also going to be able to do push-ups better, or some shit like that. See you later.